I've always been one of those people who dreamed of marriage since I was little. You know, the type of person who saves pictures of wedding dresses before they're even in a relationship? That was me. So when I met Daniel and he started talking about the future in the first few weeks, my heart just sank. He was affectionate, attentive, the type who remembered even the day we had our first pizza together. He would send me good morning messages, call just to hear my voice, talk about his mother as if he wanted to introduce me to her right away. And of course, he started throwing out ideas. How do you imagine yourself getting married? What if we had a simple ceremony on the beach? Have you thought about how many children you want to have? Every word he said made me believe that finally, I had found the right man. And I dove in without looking back. We started looking at decorations on Pinterest. He even made a spreadsheet with ideas for catering, a DJ, a dress. It seemed like it was only a matter of time before he popped the question. I felt like I was living in a movie. And like every woman in love, I started telling my family, showing my friends my ideas, even setting aside money for what would be the happiest day of my life. But what I didn't know, what I never imagined, was that while I was building castles in my head, he was already living in another woman's kingdom. And me? I was just the plan B he kept hidden, like an extra in the story he said he was writing with me. At first, Daniel was a man who was almost impossible not to love. He said everything a woman wants to hear, at exactly the right moment. If I had a difficult day, he would send me flowers. If I mentioned that I liked a certain food, the following weekend he would show up with a reservation at a restaurant that served it. And when we talked about the future, it was as if he could read my mind. He used words like we, our, when we move in together, our wedding will be simple but unforgettable. It was like living in a romantic Netflix series, complete with soundtrack and everything. Sundays became our ritual. Breakfast in bed, movies, plans. And it was always him who came up with those plans. He talked about children, said he imagined me as a mother, that he had even thought of names. The intensity was such that I had no doubt this was the man I was going to marry. But like every story that's poorly told, the holes started to appear. And they came as small cracks, things that, in a healthy relationship, would have been discussed. But with Daniel, every doubt I had was treated as my insecurity. He would say, "You need to trust me. You're seeing things that aren't there." For example, he started disappearing more on weekends. He claimed it was work, events with friends, last-minute trips. But nothing matched the rhythm he had before. I would ask him about it, and he would get angry, saying I was suffocating him. Then he started avoiding me at specific times. Sometimes I would send him a message at 8 p.m., and he would only reply the next day saying he had gone to bed early. But on Instagram, he was online until midnight. When I mentioned it, he said Instagram was glitching. Things like that kept happening. Until one day, I decided to do something I had never done before. I opened his LinkedIn, and there it was, a new company in a neighboring city with a recent description, something he never told me about. I asked him about it. He said it was something temporary, that he forgot to mention it. Forgot, as if it were possible to forget to mention that you're working in another city. From that day on, something in me woke up. My intuition, that voice we usually ignore. I started to notice more. He always left his phone face down. He started locking his phone with a facial recognition password. He no longer left his laptop unlocked when he went to the bathroom. And the strangest thing, he stopped talking about marriage. I remember once I sent him a picture of a wedding dress, just as a joke. He saw it and didn't respond. 2 hours later, he changed the subject. I insisted, "Honey, you still want to marry me, right?" He responded with a laugh, but was visibly uncomfortable. "Of course, but let's take it slow, everything in its own time." "What do you mean, let's take it slow?" Wasn't he the one who, 2 months earlier, had even suggested a date and place? The last straw came when a friend of mine saw him at a mall, holding hands with a woman. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but she described his clothes, his sneakers, even the tattoo on his arm. When I confronted him, he responded too quickly. It must have been someone who looked like me, and he changed the subject. But I knew. I felt it. It ate away at me. I started doing what I swore I would never do, digging. I searched his name on old social media accounts, looked for emails, dates, any trace, and it was on a forgotten network, Facebook, that everything started to fall apart. Among the old comments, I found a woman who liked everything, always present, posting compliments, hearts, her name, Mariana. A discreet profile, Few photos, nothing unusual. But when I clicked on tagged photos, I saw something that made my heart stop. A recent image of a romantic dinner. And there he was, Daniel, in a suit, smiling with his arm around her shoulder. The caption read, "Celebrating another year with the love of my life." The post was from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. I couldn't breathe. I tried to convince myself that maybe she was an ex, a friend. But deep down, I knew. I contacted Mariana. I mustered up the courage. I sent a polite but direct message. "Hi, sorry to intrude, but are you in a relationship with Daniel?" She saw it and took a while to respond. She replied the next day, and her answer shattered any illusions I still had. She said they had been together for 3 years, that they had been living together for over a year, that he was a wonderful man, and that they were even starting to talk about getting married the following year. Mariana sent me photos, screenshots of conversations, proof of trips, joint accounts, a photo of his closet. It was undeniable. He was leading a double life, one with me, another with her. And in both, he promised the same future. I gathered everything together: dates, places, excuses. I saw that while he was saying he was working in the countryside, he was traveling with her. While he was sending me messages saying, "Good night, sleep well," he was having dinner with Mariana. My heart broke into pieces that I don't even know if they will ever be put back together again. But the worst part was realizing that he did it coldly. It wasn't a slip-up. It wasn't a fling. It was a structure, a plan. He created 2 realities and made both women believe they were the center of his life. It was as if he were acting a part. He didn't love anyone. He loved control, the power of having 2 lives and manipulating them as he pleased. For a few days, I wanted to disappear. I felt stupid, used, disposable. But as I talked more with Mariana, I realized it wasn't about me. It wasn't about her either. It was about him. He was the problem. He was the one who lied, cheated, and distorted the truth. We were victims of the same lie, just at different times. When he wasn't with me, he was with her. When she thought he was tired, he was in my bed. And the truth is, if we hadn't met, he would have kept doing it for longer. We decided to act together, because no woman deserves to live with that kind of manipulation. And if he was good at lying, we would be even better at exposing the truth. And that's exactly what we did. But that part is just the beginning of what's to come. From the moment Mariana and I connected, everything started to change. It was as if, together, we found strength in each other, because alone, I still felt too weak. The pain she felt was the same as mine, the breakdown of trust, the shame, the feeling of being deceived by someone who slept next to us and made us believe we were unique. We talked for hours, sharing details, schedules, messages, and photos. And the more we saw, the clearer it became. Daniel wasn't just a man who cheated. He was a professional liar, a born manipulator. He knew exactly what to say to keep each of us under control. And the sickest part? He was affectionate, consistent, available. He made us feel special. He tried hard. That's what hurt the most, because the betrayal wasn't just in the presence of another woman, but in the false dedication he had for each of us. We didn't want revenge, but we knew he needed to be confronted, that he needed for the first time to look into the eyes of 2 women he had deceived and understand the damage he had caused. So we came up with a meticulous plan. He needed to feel the weight of his own drama. We arranged a dinner. Each of us had a different excuse. I said I wanted to celebrate a special milestone in our relationship. Mariana used a similar excuse, saying she wanted to surprise him. We booked the same restaurant at the same time, each of us at a separate table. When he arrived, he went to Mariana first. He kissed her on the cheek. He sat down. He was friendly, a liar, until I got up from my table and went over to theirs. His gaze froze. The blood drained from his face. For a few seconds, he tried to maintain his composure. Then he stammered. He said, "What's going on here?" Mariana, firm, replied, "You're going to tell us. Now." It was like a scene from a movie, but it was real. There, in front of the 2 women he had deceived for years, he tried to defend himself. First he said we were both crazy. Then he tried to blame it on misunderstandings. Next, he played the victim. He said he was confused, that he was afraid of hurting someone, that he loved us both and didn't know what to do. A classic. The truth is that he didn't love either of us. He loved power, the ego boost, the false sense of being too important to choose. He cried. Yes, he cried. But not because of the consequences of what he did, but because he got caught, because he couldn't keep up the charade anymore. The entire restaurant watched in silence. It was as if the world had stopped. We both exposed everything. The dates, the places, the synchronized lies. It was like watching a domino of lies collapse. And there, at that table, Daniel became what he always was, a disassembled fraud. We both got up and left together. No shouting, no scandal, just the dignity of those who no longer accept being deceived. In the days that followed, his fall was swift. Mariana kicked him out of her apartment. I blocked him from all social media. Some mutual friends stopped talking to me, perhaps out of shame, perhaps because they already knew something. The realization sank in little by little. Every morning I woke up and remembered that the man with whom I had shared my most intimate plans was, in fact, a stranger. And the pain didn't just come from the betrayal, it came from the destruction of a narrative that I myself had helped to build. I idealized it. I romanticized it. I wanted to believe it, because deep down, I was so ready to love that I ignored the warning signs, like someone who closes their eyes in a speeding car. But the cruelest part was yet to come. 2 weeks later, Daniel tried to contact me. He created a new number. He sent me a message saying he wanted to talk. He said he was in therapy and needed to explain himself better. I didn't respond. He insisted. He sent me a long email saying he was sorry, that what we had was real, that he only stayed with Mariana because he was afraid of losing me. A completely backwards logic. He said he had nightmares, that he couldn't eat, that he thought about me every day. And he used the phrase, "You are the love of my life," as if that would erase all the drama. He even sent me a playlist with songs that represented us. Ridiculous. He went so far as to send a photo of us with the caption, "This is still the most beautiful image I have in my life." I almost gave in. Almost. Because there was still a part of me that was hurt, needy, lost. But I remembered Mariana's face, the restaurant, the humiliation, of the nights crying, and I realized Daniel only knows how to lie. He doesn't know how to love. He loves the game, the control, the pleasure of being the center of everything. While he was sending messages, Mariana and I continued talking. We became friends. The shared pain brought us together. We started therapy. We exchanged experiences. And little by little, we began to rebuild our self-esteem. We helped each other remember that true love doesn't cause doubt, that no one who loves you makes you feel insecure, silences you, or hides you. And it was during this process that the biggest turning point happened, understanding that the problem was never us. The problem was him, the manipulator, the deceiver, the coward. The real climax wasn't the dinner, nor the confrontation. It was the moment I understood that my healing wouldn't come from him apologizing, but from me forgiving myself for believing so much. What he broke wasn't just trust, it was my perception of reality, and recovering that takes time, but it's possible. Today, when I look back, I see how blind I was, how I ignored the warning signs, how I clung to the idea of love and not to the reality of what that relationship was. And even after everything, I still had to fight against the shame, against the feeling of having let it happen. But I didn't let it happen. I was deceived, like so many women are. The difference is that today I see who he really is, and more importantly, I see who I am without him. Rebuilding my life, my identity, my confidence, that's the next part of the story, and perhaps the most important part of all, because what comes after the fall is what really defines who we are. And that's what you're going to hear now. The biggest revelation didn't come from Daniel. It came from me. After all the exposure, the masks coming off, the emotional collapse, I looked in the mirror and realized how much I had abandoned myself to live that relationship, how much I molded my desires to fit his, how much I tolerated silence, disappearances, lame excuses, all in the name of a love that in practice only existed inside my head. I was so desperate for a happy ending that I ignored the fact that the movie had turned into a horror film a long time ago. That's the revelation. We can only see the truth when we stop lying to ourselves. It was hard to admit. I wasn't just Daniel's victim. I had also put myself in that situation without even realizing it. I'm not saying it was my fault. He lied, manipulated, acted in bad faith. But I clung to the script of a relationship that only worked on the surface. I fed the illusion. I filtered his actions. I justified the unjustifiable. And worse, every day I forgot to ask myself how I was feeling in that situation. When you stop listening to yourself to listen to someone who lies, you enter a cycle of self-abandonment that gradually destroys your identity. The rebuilding process started from scratch. First, I cut off all contact. I blocked, deleted, and got rid of everything that reminded me of him. I burned letters, threw away gifts, deleted conversations. It was painful, but necessary. What is toxic needs to be eliminated, even from memory. Then I dove into therapy. I cried in sessions, revisited old traumas, questioned my own history, and there, for the first time, I understood that that relationship wasn't just a mistake, it was a mirror. It reflected everything I needed to heal in myself: emotional dependence, fear of being alone, the urgent need for validation, the difficulty of setting boundaries. Daniel was the symptom, not the cause. The root was deeper. I started to get back into my routine. I went back to doing things I enjoyed and had put aside. I started painting again. Simple things, but they brought me peace. I went back to walking aimlessly, just to listen to music. I rediscovered old hobbies. I read books about self-love, self-esteem, trauma, and reconnection. And every page I read was a wound being stitched up. I started going out alone, not to meet someone, but to reconnect with myself. I learned to sit in cafes and watch the world without waiting for messages on my phone. I learned that silence doesn't have to be a sign of abandonment. It can be a sign of presence with myself. I also rebuilt my support network. I reconnected with friends I had pushed away, and most importantly, I maintained my bond with Mariana. Yes, the other woman, who became my friend. Ironic, right? The woman who was supposed to be my enemy became one of the people who understands me the most, because only she truly knows what it's like to be deceived in the same way, with the same words, by the same person. With her, I don't need to explain. Her pain validates mine, and together, we started talking about everything, about how women are taught to compete with each other, but are rarely taught to support each other when they are hurt by the same man. We started writing. Yes, writing. Texts, stories, reflections. We even created an anonymous page on the internet telling our story. And the most surprising thing? Hundreds of other women started reaching out to us, saying, "That happened to me too. He also promised to marry me and had someone else." I thought it was just my imagination, but now I understand that I was manipulated. It became a mission to show that it's not drama, that it's not an exaggeration, that there are men who live a double life, who maintain 2 or 3 relationships at the same time, keeping promises, making plans, telling lies, and destroying the emotional health of women who just wanted to be truly loved. The biggest turning point in my life was understanding that I didn't need a happy ending with someone else. I needed peace with myself, to build a relationship with myself where I didn't have to ask for love. And from that point on, everything changed. I started working better, eating better, sleeping better. My skin changed. My outlook changed, and most importantly, my standards changed. I learned that affection without presence is just manipulation wrapped in a pretty package, that a man who loves you doesn't make you anxious, that someone who really wants you doesn't make you beg for attention. It took me a while to understand that trust can't be bought with words, that it's no use for a guy to say, "I love you," if he disappears when you need him most. That marriage doesn't start when he gives you a ring. It starts when he includes you in his life in a transparent way, when he respects you, listens to you, gives himself to you. Love isn't words, it's actions, and Daniel was just pretty words thrown to the wind. A storyteller, a screenwriter of promises that would never make it off the page. Today, if he crossed my path, I wouldn't feel anger, or love, or pity. I would feel nothing. Because the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And that's exactly what I feel, indifference. Mariana followed the same path. She moved to another city, got another job. She said that for the first time, she is getting to know a man who doesn't promise anything, but who shows everything with his actions. Me, for now, I'm single, and at peace. I don't want another relationship yet. I want to continue rebuilding myself, because I understand that the most important marriage of my life is with myself, and no one can destroy that. So if you've come this far with a broken heart, identifying with every word, I can tell you with certainty, you can get out of this. You can rebuild. You can live a light, free life without the anxiety of waiting for your phone to vibrate. But the first step doesn't come from him. It comes from you, from choosing yourself, from looking in the mirror and saying, I deserve more. Because you really do. And what was lost, leave it in the past, because the future, that you can build based on the truth. And it starts the moment you decide to never again accept less than you deserve.